Hello and welcome to Own the Market by Annie Mac Works, featuring three industry veterans, including Karen Rawlings from Bethesda, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. This real estate agent currently in today's market sells over 200 homes a year. Paul Pykosh is a three-decade veteran in the mortgage industry. And my name is Russ Fitzpatrick. I've been selling real estate since 1986 with a focus on best practices and pass me down wisdom that has become a product called Annie Mac Works. I'm really excited to share with you this live, informal real estate sales meeting. I think what you're going to see today is exactly what you would see if you were in a sales meeting with two veteran real estate agents that have sold over 7,000 homes. So what Paul Pykosh did, is he posed some of the questions from the audience and some of the realtors that were interested in very specific, pointed answers that could help you as a real estate agent make more money right now. So questions like, what would you do right now to start earning, to start selling right away? What is the one thing you couldn't live without in real estate? What's the one thing that makes a difference for you? Or what made a difference for you when you were new and when you were starting out? Questions from realtors like, where do you buy leads from? Who do you buy leads from? Do you even buy leads? How can I start getting listings? What should I start to do to build a listing inventory? Is there anything specific that Karen Rawlings or I did in our geographic farm areas that made an impact, creating a pride in ownership of a particular subdivision or farm area? Right now in today's market, how are rising interest rates impacting your market? And what is Farming Fridays and how can I participate completely free on scholarship with Annie Mac Works? So without further ado, I'm going to bring you in live to a meeting we had very recently. It's not some polished presentation that was rehearsed. It is live, and it is my version of what would be happening in a sales meeting in your local market if you had two realtors that had combined to sell over 7,000 homes in their career. What would they be telling you to grow your business in 2022 and beyond?
What is one thing that realtors can do today, right now, to sell more homes in the approaching market? This summer season, spring season, what's one thing that you think would be the action to take right now? Well, I'll see you, Karen, first.
Talk to people. So one of the things that I do all day long is I talk, and everywhere I go, I tell people what I do for a living, and I talk about real estate because everybody loves talking about real estate. And I get names, I collect names. I want to meet people, I do events. I talk to people. That's going to be your biggest thing, is just staying in touch with people and meeting people every day and doing events. There's an agent in our local area who did something on Facebook the other day that I thought was so cool. She was doing an open house, and I think she hired like a truck that does milkshakes or smoothies or something. And she said, come out and get a smoothie. And so I was like, that is so cool. She probably had a really good open house. So it's just contacting people. And Russ?
How about you, Russ?
Well, I hope, how's the sound over there, Paul? Is it lagging a little bit on you now, or is it better?
It's a little bit better. Can everybody hear Russ? Yes. Yes, they're hearing you.
Good. So, the first thing I wanted to say today to the group is the big surprise when you come to events like this is someone's usually trying to sell something to you or get you to buy something. And that's not the case here today. I'm a guest of Paul Pykosh and Karen's, and I think that this is a really special opportunity for realtors to get together to just talk about what works. And this first question from Paul, he says, what could you do today if I were in that market? What would I recommend that you do today that would take advantage of this upcoming busy selling season? And I can say without hesitation, in the Maryland market, the first thing I would look to do right now, if I were a realtor sitting in that room, is I would want to prospect
go ahead and cut through the nerves and the anxiety, anything that's holding you back from prospecting. And I would literally go knock on the door of every single seller that is facing foreclosure in the Maryland market right now. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of homes in your zip code, in your county, that you can go prospect. And the reason I'm going to, be emphatic about this is the first time in our nation's history that families are facing foreclosure with equity. Like, some of them have $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 in equity, and they're still kind of putting their head in the sand about foreclosure. So if you have a tax roll system in your office, go into that tax roll, find the list pendants notifications. In your state, they might be called notice of foreclosure. And I would prospect those sellers, because I'll bet you could get one listing for every 10 people you talk to today. And we went over some scripts last time we were together. I'm happy to share those with Paul if you need a script to feel comfortable with those sellers. But get out and talk to sellers. The listings are worth $1 million right now, because you'll get so many buyers off of those listings.
Those are great ideas, and I'm sure there's going to be some more coming. We're going to go backwards a little bit. I'm going to ask Karen another question. When you were first in the business, residential real estate, what struggles did you have? When was your breakthrough?
The biggest struggle I had was I didn't have any listings, and I worked with a lady named Karen and a guy named Mike, and they were getting listings every single month. And they would make fun of me. They had a big board and they had all their listings on it, and they bought me a little tiny chalkboard and they stuck it up in the thing that says Karen's tiny listing thing. And I was like, great, thanks. So they said, if you don't list, you won't last. You should farm. And that's one of the things that Russ is going to talk about today. So my sister Sherry and I, she's right here, we started doing a newsletter in our marketing area. There was a guy named John that kept getting all the listings in our neighborhood. And we started doing a newsletter consistently over and over and over again. And then when we moved out to the Olney area, we increased the numbers. And we'll get into a little bit of that later, but it was really the farming that put me on the map. And that's one of the things that Russ is awesome at. He's going to talk about Farming Fridays in a little bit, which I'm very excited about. But anyway, back to you.
Russ, same question.
Karen, every time Karen answers a question, I smile, because our backgrounds are so parallel. And if, for the audience, I think success leaves clues, right? And here's Karen selling 200 homes a year that started with a newsletter to start taking listings, right? And here's Russ on this side of the conversation, who started with a newsletter. I had a 4-page newsletter to begin with, and then I eventually grew it to become an 8-page newsletter. And the great privilege that I had running my newsletter in my farm area is I actually sold ads, because I'm a cheapskate, and my wife is even cheaper than I am. She can't stand spending money. So we sold ads in the newsletter, and that paid for the newsletter to be printed and delivered. And we ended up writing that newsletter to the tune of about $11 million a year in sales just from that farm area. So it was a fantastic piece of equipment for us. And I'm sure that between my expertise and Karen's, we could probably steer you in the right direction to get your own newsletter going. I think it would be a really strong thing to have happen. For me, my big breakthrough was when I learned how to manage my time. I was all over the place as a realtor. I was trying to chase buyers. I was trying to follow up with old buyers. I was trying to get people qualified and doing leads. And I was kind of scattered. And back then, I felt like when I was at home, I needed to be at work. And when I was at work, I felt like I needed to be at home. And I was just frazzled and frustrated all the time until I really started time blocking. And once you time block for the most productive activities in your business, you set aside 4 to 6 hours to work on your newsletter every month. And you set aside 2 or 3 hours a week to call those sellers and talk to sellers. And you set aside a couple of hours each week. And I'll just confide in you, when I was in a very young age in residential real estate, I physically went and delivered the newsletters on the doors to the houses myself. And it took me an hour to deliver every 100, 100 door hangers an hour. And then sometimes I'd wrestle my wife into the picture and get her to do it with me. But once we started time blocking, we started to say, wow, every 1,000 newsletters that we deliver is getting us a listing. So all we have to do is put in that time. And then sometimes it was 2 or 3 listings per 1,000, but never was it really below 1 listing per 1,000 delivered for our run. And we just had a great time. So if you're in that room, I would say start to time block the most productive activities in your business. And I would only end on this. Besides farming, we created a system for sale by owners. And I used to pay my assistant to work that system of for sale by owners because I couldn't stand for sale by owners. And I used to have a system to work expired listings. And I didn't like to work expired listings. So I had my assistant work that system for me. So it was really after Mike Ferry coaching. I was coached by Mike Ferry that I got real serious about time and time blocking. He taught me repetitious involvement compounds over time, and I think that the most successful realtors I meet nationally are kind of, they're sort of ritualistic, I would say. They do the same activities week after week, and those activities compound and bring in income. So my answer is time blocking.
Both great answers. So I'm going to throw a little curveball at you. Besides the newsletter, some of the things you've already mentioned, if you were to take all of your knowledge and expertise and have to move into a market where you've never lived before, what would you do then?
So I have this class that I teach, and it's called How to Sell 100 Houses with 7 Habits. So the 7 habits that I do, which I'll send all of you, it's a 1-hour class that I teach, but they taped it so I can send it to you so you can watch it. But there's 7 things that I do, and it doesn't matter where you live or what you do. One is you put your people, you just said you don't know anybody. Somebody does your nails, you buy your groceries someplace, you get a massage, right? So you could meet like 10 people a day just wandering around the town. So putting people in your database, even if you only have 2, you just start doing it. You send them a monthly little postcard, e-postcard, and it just says, hi, happy St. Patrick's Day. Oh, Russ, happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day. So his last name is Fitzpatrick, and we think we're related because I had some Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. I believe that we're related in somehow. We probably should do one of those DNA tests and see how we're connected, Karen, because we have way too much in common.
It's like we walk alike, we talk alike. It's kind of weird, but anyway. So then the second thing is if you want to join a charitable group, which my sister Sherry sings at 2 churches, and I go hear her sing, but we meet people and it's great. Join a networking group. So BNI, which is Business BNI, Business Networking International. They're in every city throughout the United States. I also belong to the Lions. I always suggest that everybody join the Lions. My daughter says it's like Boy Scouts for adults, but it's a good group of people. You meet people, the average age is over 60. Those are people that are going to downsize. What's my 6th habit? Prospecting. Okay, this is important. I spend 2 hours every day of my life prospecting. I don't need to, it's just what I do. Prospecting is like going to the gym. If you go to the gym and you do 1 sit-up, it's not going to work. You have to be consistent. So every day I forward my cell phone to my daughter-in-law in Texas, and that means nobody can reach me, which is awesome. And I put my nose to the grindstone and I make my calls for 2 hours every single day. And then take classes like Brian Buffini, Floyd Wickman. Join groups, go out and have fun. So I joined the Norbeck Country Club, which is why we get to have breakfast here. Isn't this great? And if you've ever wanted to join a country club, this one's phenomenal. I'll just give them a little plug. It's $225 a month for a social membership, which is like nothing. And when I come here for dinner, it's really quiet. And they have tennis and golf, and their golf lessons start for age 4-year-olds. Anyway, that's a great way to meet people. They have like a social mixer thing. And then like Patty has a bunch of kids, she can put all those kids in her database. Did you send out your e-card yet? No. So anyway, if you do these things consistently over and over again, that's how you're going to grow your business. 7 habits, and I'll send them all to you.
Perfect. Sure. Russ, can you talk?
Karen, I have some notes written down for these questions that Paul was going to pose, and I didn't know your answers in advance, but I'm just going to read what it says. The first thing I would do if I entered a new community and I was just new at selling real estate, the very first thing I would do is find out if I could join the BNI group. But I would stress participation, not just membership. You know, when you go to a BNI or a Lions Club or a Chamber of Commerce, any of those networking, if your BNI is full in your market, then go to your Chamber of Commerce. If your Chamber of Commerce has too many realtors, go to your Lions Club. If you got to find those environments that you can meet people and have peer level relationships. That's number one for me. That was number one for Karen. If you don't belong to a networking group and you don't feel comfortable with like the political or charitable organizations, just get active in your church, spend more time there, talk to people, go to the meetings, go to the events, start to see yourself as a networking animal, you know? And then I had as my second thing, prospect. You know, I hated prospecting. I got nervous every single time I prospected, but like Karen, I had a family to take care of, you know? So one of my favorite football coaches said, you know, boys do what they want to do and men do what they got to do. And I took that and converted it to realtors. Low producing realtors just go around every day doing what they want to do. And top producers always do what they have to do, you know, even if they don't want to. And I prospected like a banshee. You won't believe me when I tell you, I called from 7 a.m. until 9 a.m. And that is a fact. And the reason I did that was so annoying. I got hung up by many sellers, hung up on me yelling. But I called the expired listings between 7 and 9 a.m. because I wanted to be the first realtor they talked to. You talk about a gritty, kind of a calloused experience. Good morning. I'm sorry to call you so early, but I wanted to catch you before you went to work. It's a terrible way to make a living, but I did that for many years, and I took at least 2 listings a week from that activity. I can promise you that. I'd probably start with a very small farm area if I were new to a community, and I'm talking about 60 to 100, 150 homes. If you didn't want to spend too much, just really get intimate with 100 to 200 homeowners first. I teach and my wife teaches, don't ever pick a farm less than 600 homes. But if you're going to get in new and you don't want to break the bank, at least pick one little townhouse development or one little community where you can have a pride in ownership of that farm area, and you back it up with knowledge. And I think that those, you know, Karen has 7 habits she's going to send to you. We've got a whole system called Farming Fridays Paul's going to give to you for free. But what I would suggest is get involved with networking, join a club or a church so you're rubbing elbows with people regularly, and then start the headache of prospecting. I know it's not fun, but it sure pays the bills, pal. It really pays the bills.
Both of you were mentioning, obviously, hyper-local farming is what we're talking about. Russ, you also touched on Farming Fridays.
Yep.
What exactly is that?
Yeah, so Annie Mac Home Mortgage, Paul's parent company, is a $6.5 billion mortgage company. They close about 2,500 mortgages a month. And they decided to invest in the real estate community with these coaching programs. And what we're able to do for you, with you, together with Karen, is have you go through a 6-week coaching program that really focuses on the granular implementation of a farm area. It's completely free of charge. You can't go on to week 2 until you complete the assignments from week 1. So it serves as an accountability partnership with you, and it helps you really establish a farm area. Whether you're going to go for a small kind of townhouse villa development where it's 60 to 100 townhouses or houses, or if you're going to go with a big farm area, I think having the granular direction that Karen will give you and the one that Paul's willing to pay for with Farming Fridays, I think they're both great opportunities for learning.
Yes, thanks. Yes, Farming Fridays, if you're interested in that, we have, at the end of this presentation, there's forms to fill out. Just mention if that's something you're interested in. I'll give you more information. Karen, you want to tell me more about your personal mentorship program?
Sure. So what I do when agents start with our group or with our company is I sit them down and find out, what are you going to do when you grow up? And everybody's different. So a number of years ago, my cousin, who was over 50, decided that she was going to be leaving the mortgage banking industry. She was an underwriter for like 30 years. And she said, do you think I can do real estate? And I said, heck yeah. So I said, I want you to come in and we're going to go over a plan and figure out what you want to do. And so she is doing homes at Leisure World because she's now over 55. So she's a good candidate for that. My son, who's 25, he came to me and said, what do you think I should do? And I was like, not Leisure World. So he can't stand going to Leisure World. He had one estate listing down in Leisure World and it almost killed him. He was like, I can't handle this, Mom. I just can't. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And so we finally got him involved in estates because he likes sellers that are no longer among the living. And they don't yell at him. They don't call him at night. He works with attorneys and they're 9-to-5ers, and then he can play golf on the weekend. So everybody's kind of got their niche, but you have to figure out what is it that you're good at, who do you know, and then I figure out a plan to put you on the track so you can get where you want to go. And it's not the same for everybody because everybody's different. If you're an extrovert, you want to do this. If you're an introvert, you want to do that. So it's a little different. If you're a part-timer, there's different methods that you can do, but everybody can be successful in real estate. It's probably the coolest business on the entire planet because there's no limits. There's no ceilings. When I worked for corporate America, I couldn't get promoted. They kept hiring men. And I was probably 20, and I looked like I was 14, and I was not very big. And so they kept hiring people that looked like him. And if you open the magazines of the Fortune 500 companies, they really don't look like me. They look like him. And I finally realized that I wasn't going to get where I wanted to go in corporate America. And I switched over into real estate and was like, game over. There are no limits. So.
Paul, can I echo that one real quick?
Please do.
I had such a huge fear of failure as a younger adult, and I had kind of always like anxiety issues, if I'm being really honest. And once I focused on knowledge and really started to gain expertise, Paul has a renovation lending program. Once I know the ins and outs of that program and I know the process like the back of my hand, or once I know my farm area and I know the subdivisions and I know the names of the community and the names of the models perhaps, once I know the average square footages and I start to sense that I have like kind of an armor of knowledge where I know more than my consumer does and I know more than my fellow realtors do, and I really pride myself on a knowledge, I honestly got rid of all that anxiety issues that I used to have by hoarding knowledge. And I would suggest that there's no roadmap for residential real estate, right? There's not a very particular one way of doing it, but I know now I'm 54, I know that if the world went to kind of hell in a handbasket or something bad happened financially, I could relocate to almost any city in America and I could start making, $200,000 to $300,000 a year right away. I have friends, and I'm not sure if Karen would boast that as a confidence of hers, but I have friends that have relocated their real estate businesses across the country or inside the state, and you see the same production follow them quickly, like 3 to 4 or 5 months in, they're already closing 2-3 deals a month. And I want to empower you to go out and find that armor of knowledge and really take a pride of ownership in a farm area like that. And just as an exit strategy, when I moved from Fort Lauderdale, I released about 11,000 home farm area to a couple of young realtors that worked for me. And I still get referral checks on those farm areas because they're still using my name in those farm areas. So you can really build a great livelihood in this industry if you'll arm yourself with the confidence and do that one ugly habit, which is the ugliest four-letter word in real estate is work. You know, not a lot of people want to do that prospecting work, but if you heard from Karen and you heard from me, prospecting is kind of the necessary evil in this industry. You've got to speak to people about listing their home for sale. It's just something you got to do.
Yeah, one thing, Russ, you haven't mentioned it. Usually in these events, you use the phrase "time on task over time" as a way to increase your productivity. It's definitely something I've learned from you because, you know, things you don't want to do.
Yeah, I actually had the privilege of being involved in construction at many times during my career. And when you lay that one brick down, it doesn't seem like much is happening. And then another brick and another brick, and it compounds, right? And then you step back and you see this beautiful home or you know, cabin. In my case, I just built a cabin up in the mountains. And you see this process, and it feels very, very similar to residential real estate. When you first call a seller, or two, or three, or four, it doesn't feel like much is happening. But time on task over time, it really does compound. And then you step back and you see this beautiful creation that you had, and you really feel a pride when you look at your children, you look at your spouse or your significant other, and you feel proud of yourself that you were willing to do the work that so few other realtors were willing to do. Prospect, network, you know, go build a farm area. These are things that will give you that sense of just confidence and almost a bravado eventually that comes over you, where you start to feel a sense of certainty about your ability to perform in this industry. And I would love to hear from you as that unfolds. Through Paul Pykosh, if you take the renovation lending certification that we offer, if you took the Farming Fridays 6-week course, if you took the staging courses that Paul has for you, there's just a ton of things in there that could arm you with differentiation and arm you with a sense of personal power in the market. I love to hear stories of personal transformation when a person leaves a brokerage and goes to work for Karen, and then all of a sudden 6 months later they're experiencing an entirely different livelihood in real estate. It's one of my favorite things about our industry is that there's no racial or gender or lines. Like Karen said, there's just no glass ceiling here. And I love to hear those stories of personal transformation that come out of taking that first step, like joining Karen's team or going through Farming Fridays or getting your staging certification. It's just awesome to hear those stories across the country.
Yeah, those are all good points. And again, Russ mentioned some of the platforms that we have to increase productivity on the feedback sheets. If you're interested in any of those, check this off and pick them up at the end. I'm going to change gears a little bit here and talk a little bit more here and now. Karen, you mentioned something to me before we started today about interest rates. And how is the rising interest rates affect your real estate market?
Okay, I don't like this. Interest rates went up. So I had two deals that were supposed to happen this week, and both of them bit the dust. So one was a townhouse that I was trying to sell. They wrote the offer, and then the interest rates went up to 5, and they walked away, and I wanted to cry. And then the second one was a $900,000 house, and they were going to write on it, and the interest rates went up, and they walked away. And I was like, okay, we are trending up as far as interest rates. So life's going to be just fine. We're at 5%. I bought a house at 16%. That was a bad day. And so I'm explaining to people why the buyers need to go ahead and really get in on this market now, because 5% is amazing. One of my clients financed $400,000 at 3%. I had financed $80,000 in 1981 at 16%. So his $400,000 loan and my $80,000 loan were almost identical interest payments. is like 1,060. So these interest rates are amazing. So I'm doing a different spin on it and putting a positive thing on it, but it's going to the market's going to soften a little bit, which doesn't change a thing. Houses are still going to sell, babies will still be born, people will still get married, people will still get divorced, and people will still join the Lord. So there's always going to be business. I love what Russ said about prospecting. So I do a lot of different prospecting. I call my client database. So you don't have a client database, that's fine. I also call neighborhoods. So my daughter and I are trying to get a house in this one very specific neighborhood. So she is knocking on doors and she's hanging a little bag on the door. And then I've got somebody in my office on Sundays and I give him the old-fashioned Haynes directory list of names and numbers. And he calls up and he says, "Hi, this is Adam with Karen Rawlings' office. Do you know anybody who might be thinking about buying or selling a house? We need a house in your neighborhood." And so we're calling the entire neighborhood because we need that business. So there's tons of people you can call. I have another agent on my team. He's doing just expired listings. His name's Gary. Gets on the phone every morning and calls expireds. I've got another agent in my office. He's doing exactly what Russ just said. We go through and pull all the foreclosures in the area, and we send them a letter and we hang something on their door, and if we can find their phone number, we make a phone call. Because Russ's point is, the last time we went through this crazy market shift, people did not have equity in their homes because of the liar loans. This time, people who got behind in their mortgage, they got behind in their mortgage before COVID hit. And that was before prices went up 20, 30%, at least in this marketing area. So what we're seeing is really good foreclosures. So my group, we bought one in Howard County, one in Frederick County, and one in Montgomery County. And those all go on the market this month. So there's money to be made every day in every way. So don't let the interest rates scare you, but do be aware that you need to get out there and get those buyers to buy.
Excellent answer, because we have to be positive.
Can I say something, Paul?
Please do.
I still today take in about 4,500 leads a month in our South Florida brokerages. And I will tell you that 6 months ago, we were having this very conversation with our buyers, right? We were explaining to them that if the interest rates tick up to 5, they're going to spend $400 to $700 more per month on the same exact house. And it's sometimes much, much more than that. As a real estate agent and as a lead conversion specialist, which our brokerage really specializes in lead conversion, we have interest rate conversations with the buyer at the onset of the relationship. And we explain to them that we kind of try to put the fear of God in them, that with inflation doing what inflation's doing, we might be looking at 7% by the end of this calendar year. So you taking a side road to a 5% interest rate in May it might be a poor decision because locking in a 5% interest rate in 2022 will be something you're celebrating in 2030. And I just can't stress Karen's point. I bought my first house at 11.5% interest rate. And, they're looking at gift horse in the mouth if they're complaining about 5%, because it ain't going to go back to 3.5 ever. I don't think so anyway.
No, I agree. When I'm talking to customers that are buying houses and the interest rate concern comes up, I talk to them about the mathematics of the cost of waiting. If you wait and the rates go up, if you wait, the price of the home still goes up. So what's that going to look like? So that sometimes is enough to get people to realize that maybe now is better than waiting. It's better to have a home than it is to rent. Because if you're renting, you're paying somebody else's interest, so why not pay your own? So that's some of the things that I do as well. Interest rates. So there's a good question. So all this talk about the interest rates, what do you think the market's going to be like at the end of the year?
It's going to be great, I think, because at least where we live, and we're so lucky. My mom said to me when I first got into real estate, she said, well, we certainly are in the right place for you to be doing this, because Washington, D.C. is the capital. It's also the #1 city in the nation for relocation. People are moving in and moving out. Every 4 years, things change. People move in and out. So we're lucky. We're not in Kansas. So it's always going to be good here. You can always make a living in real estate in this marketing area. So I don't see any changes. Just got to do the hustle.
I would echo that. I would say same as usual. Interest rates probably in the mid fives or so would be the speculative guess. The Ukraine situation blows up and becomes a nightmare for everybody. Things are going to change all across. But if that settles down, hopefully, I don't have any idea. But the only other thing, like Karen said, you're in a market that has high demand, whether interest rates go up or down, because more people relocate in and out of your marketplace than almost anywhere else in the world. I lived all my life and sold real estate in Southeast Florida. And we used to have a saying in my brokerage, you know who moves to Florida? Old people, cold people, and rich people. And we knew that they were coming. So we just had to get in front of them and help them find houses. And we had a really good time selling real estate down there. Like you guys in Maryland, you have such a high demand. And no matter what happens to the interest rates, people are still going to need to buy a house.
It's true. Do either of you buy leads? And if so, who do you use to buy?
Our company has a CRM called KV4, and we do something it's called Make It Rain. But most of my leads come from just, contacting people. I always say real estate's contact sport, and the more people you contact, the better you're going to do. And people are more likely to use you because they see you and they know you and they've spoken to you than they are to get a lead. But there's lots of lead gen. We do Zillow. We have an upgrade on Zillow. We get some leads from that. But most of it's just coming from our networking things. People are much more likely to go with someone they know. Like my Lions meeting was last night. That's my Boy Scout troop for adults. And I probably get 3 to 4 listings a year just from the Lions. And then we get 3 to 4 listings from the church. We get 3 to 4 listings from all my kids played sports. So, and now most of them are in real estate now anyway. But it's really from knowing people and getting out there and getting involved and having people know your name. That's what's, I think, the most important thing.
What about you, Russ? Leads?
I use a product just like Karen does, like a KV Core. I really respect the value of a CRM organizational tool. If you don't have something, I would recommend a demo with Karen on KV Core because it changes the game for long-term follow-up with buyers. I have in the past bought leads from Zillow and Realtor.com, but most of my leads today come from pay-per-click advertising of our own websites. And also, like Karen said, one of my analogies, if you don't have any listings, it's kind of like running a shoe store without shoes. You just don't have any inventory that's bringing people into the store. I would say start with listing focus on inventory, and then the buyers come. I mean, you'll never have a hard time. If you list one of those pre-foreclosures in Maryland, you'll have more buyers than you know what to do with.
Is this what you mean by list to last?
Yeah, if you don't list, you won't last. If you have a listing, then what I do when I get a listing is I always have an open house, and I don't have an open house. I have an open house party. I usually send out 1,000 invitations and invite people to come to the open house party, and then I collect names. And I had one open house where we had 150 people. Patty remembers that one. I called Patty and I said, Patty, you've got to come help me. There's like a line down the driveway. I've run out of fact sheets. I don't have any more booties. Please help me. And it was because we sent out this really fun invitation and people were like, oh, cool, let's go see that really fun kitchen. So then we now have 100 new contacts that go into our contact management base. So if I didn't have the listing, I wouldn't have had the open house and I wouldn't have had those 100 people. So you've got to get listings, and my course that I'll send you will tell you how to get listings.
And it's a lot easier to get a listing in your geographic farm area, right? So one of the things we're preaching about today is creating a pride in ownership of a particular subdivision. I could tell you that when I prospect expireds or for sale by owners, every single prospect has to be resold on doing business with me. In your farm area, you almost become an order taker. You walk into the living room and you talk to them about their needs and you shoot the breeze for a few minutes. and all of a sudden you're going over a listing contract because they know who you are already in your farm area. And if you don't ever have that ownership of a farm area, you never get that benefit. But like Karen, I think list to last is almost converting, and I hate to sound like a negative nanny, but it's almost like list or die. You know, when you got Realtor.com and Zillow taking all the leads off the top, you know, and skimming the buyers off the top so high up, you've got to get hyper local to compete with them. You have to have some inventory, and you have to say, hey, they're coming to me because of this house. And that's going to give you, Paul has a course that we do for realtors across the country called REO Opportunities. And I've measured it. 11 buyers a week come in off the REO listing. It's just an incredible way to kind of get the buyers to come to you rather than going off to Zillow or Realtor.com.
Very, very true. All right, we're going to wind things down a little bit, but Russ, I want to ask you, talk to us a little bit more about AnnieMac Works, how that fits into everything, what it does for everybody.
Yeah, it really is my life's work. It's something of a legacy project for me over the past 13 years. I've stopped doing all the courses in it. We've started to enroll smarter people like Karen to teach courses with us. I met a guy in Fort Worth, Texas that sells 500 homes a year. He taught a course for us. I got a guy up in New York State that sells 500 homes a year. You know, I'm trying to find the national landscape of best practices and bring it back to your realtors through our portal. So we're constantly interviewing elite realtors across the country, and we're collaborating with them on their area of expertise. And sometimes it blows my mind, like Karen has her son working the probate, you know, market. I never did that as a realtor. And to find out that they're taking, you know, 20, 30 listings a year from probate, or, you know, a couple listings a month. I met a guy in California that does the same thing, and we built a program called Probate Works. So it's going to sound overwhelming, but we have 80 unique modules inside of the AnnieMac Works real estate productivity platform. It is my personal legacy to the residential real estate industry because there's very little middle class in residential real estate, right? There's the haves, which make up about the top 5% of realtors. And then there's the have-nots, which is kind of the bottom 95th percentile. And when you look at the disparity between the people who can't make a living selling real estate, or not a great living, and then these people that make it look so easy, that are making, you know, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year and more, it became a mission of mine to find out what these folks were doing so that we could pass down that wisdom. And that's what AnnieMac Works is all about. And Paul has a sign up opportunity for you. It's completely free. We don't sell anything on it. And my last invite for you as a testimony to my wife, she was the agent who taught me how to get organized in my farm. Carrie did $11 million while she was raising children. And, you know, she was doing 11 million just from her farm area. So if you think about that, she's making her first $250,000 to $300,000 a year just in her farm area. So I would implore you, I would hope for you to go through Carrie's 6-week coaching program as a guest of Karen's, as a guest of Paul's, absolutely free. If you go through that 6-week, I think it's not only game changing for your real estate career, but I bet you it changes. It might change the neighborhood that your kids live in one day. You know, if you master the art of making $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month by farming, you know, you might end up living in a completely different neighborhood, going on different vacations, driving a different car, eating in different restaurants. And it'll be a testimony, just like my testimony to Floyd Wickman and Mike Ferry. They were my coaches. Hopefully Carrie can help you get organized in Farming Fridays market to learn how to really produce at a high level. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys today.
Well, I hope you enjoyed and appreciated the leadership provided by Karen and Paul, and whatever insight or leadership we can provide to you during this brief get together. That was certainly a peek into a live sales meeting with real estate agents that we are vested in and care about. And we want to get vested and truly partner with you in your local markets as well. Annie Mac Home Mortgage invests heavily in the real estate community, and we do that with a product called Annie Mac Works. For a full scholarship to our Farming Fridays 6-week coaching program, simply scan the QR code on the left side of your screen. If you don't have a QR code scanner, just type into your search bar www.workssignup/agents in action. I want to thank you for your time and attention today and remind you that at Annie Mac Home Mortgage, our success as a mortgage bank truly is measured by your success as a real estate agent. Thanks for being with us today, and we will